Yeah, I just got off the phone with him. Short conversation. The bottom line from him was, in his words, this was a tremendous success tonight. When I, engaged with him on questions of how this was undertaken and what the next steps are, he did not want to engage on that right now. He obviously is addressing the country in less than an hour, but he did pick up the phone to tout what he called a tremendous success tonight. Separately with a conversation with another good source, not President Trump, who said that there was a lot more to this attack than taking out the nuclear sites in Iran. The big question now, of course, as we have discussed, is what will Iran do to retaliate? It has a vast arsenal of conventional weaponry, of ballistic missiles, mid-short-range ballistic missiles that can hit a whole range of targets throughout the Middle East, as we've seen over the last 10 days with Israel. And it appears that tonight, according to my source, there was a major focus on destroying as much of that as possible as well, not simply the nuclear sites, but also targeting Iran's ability to respond to what happened tonight.
And John, as you know, all presidents come into office with plans for the homeland, their domestic agenda, and all the things that they want to do. And Trump himself very vocal about ending foreign wars and not wanting to engage in long, extended conflicts. This, no doubt, can you even compare this to a decision he made in his first term? Is this the biggest, most consequential decision he's ever made as a president of the United States?
I don't think there's any doubt that on the facts we know right now, this is the most consequential decision Donald Trump has ever made. And we don't know, is this going to be consistent with his promise to end forever wars? His allies are making that case. They're actually saying that although this was a military action, it was a military action that they believe will prove to have done away with a threat that has been a shadow over American policy in the Middle East for nearly a half a century, the threat of the Iranian regime. But let's remember also what Donald Trump said in his inaugural address. Very important words, besides saying he wanted to be known as a peacemaker. He said that he will measure results by the wars that he has ended, and perhaps more importantly, by the wars that he has not, that we do not get into. Now, we don't know. Is this again going to be proved to be effectively ending a low-grade war that the United States has been engaged in for 46 years, since the Iranians, the mullahs took over in 1979? Or is this the beginning of another more dangerous, more violent, more active phase in the U.S.-Iran conflict? But whatever it is, this will be the moment that, at least from the facts that we have right now, Donald Trump will be judged by.
Yeah, major questions tonight, and what happens tomorrow. John Karl, thank you. Let's go back to Ian Panel in Tel Aviv. And Ian, we've already seen prior to tonight, some of these attacks, some of the missile attacks on Israel have been getting through. A lower percentage, but we've seen some of the damages on hospitals and residential buildings there. It's been quiet so far tonight, but what are Israelis expecting in the coming days?
Check that, Timmy. Yeah, I think the immediate reaction will be people will be fearing the worst. Interestingly, the Home Front Command has just issued new guidelines to people, basically activating the highest state of preparedness. In other words, nobody should go to work, all businesses will be closed, nobody goes to school, and everybody should stay close to shelters. In other words, everybody is bracing for an Iranian response. We certainly heard all the various lurid threats that we have been issued by the Ayatollah, by the Iranian foreign minister and others over the last few days about what would happen if America joined this war, which it has now done. President Trump and others may be hoping that this is a one-off action and that will draw a line under events. Well, as the military gets to say, the enemy gets a vote in that, and we have to wait and see what the official Iranian response will be. We have heard from the Iranians that at least 2 of those facilities that were struck tonight by U.S. resources had been evacuated beforehand. Yoav Gallant, who of course is a former Israeli defense minister, posted just in the last few minutes, President Trump took a bold decision. The world is now a safer place. But we're also hearing already threats from one of the Iranian proxies. This is the Houthis, again, on X. Hazam al-Assad, who's a member of the political bureau of the Houthi movement, saying Washington must bear the consequences of this strike. Steve Ganyard, who you were speaking to earlier, got it absolutely right in terms of the sense that Iran has no major friends in the region. It has commercial allies, ones that it has supplied weapons to, in particular Russia and China, but none of which are ready to come to Iran's aid. The proxies, all of these proxy groups have been severely downgraded, primarily through Israeli military action over the last few months. Hamas, of course, Hezbollah in particular, the decapitation of Hezbollah's leadership, and, of course, the U.S., together with Israel, was bombing the Houthi rebels who are supplied by Iran. They're based in Yemen. But why are they a threat? They're a threat because of the Straits of Hormuz. This key shipping lane will now be seen as a potential target for Iran and Iranian forces. And it is critical for oil supplies, not so much for the United States, but certainly that reach China and the European Union. Those shipping lanes are absolutely vital. Now, the deal that was struck between the Trump administration and the Houthis, much to Israel's annoyance, it was a direct deal, essentially guaranteed that the Houthis would not attack U.S. facilities, so U.S. military craft going through the region or U.S. tankers. Now the question is that deal still in place? Will the Houthis regard it as having been breached by the United States? Well, if that statement means anything, and one should expect that there will be a lot of lurid statements, we have to wait and see what the action is. But if it do, then U.S. craft going through that area will be susceptible. Yeah, it's a very important point, the potential global economic implications and ramifications as a result of this escalation here. Ian, panel, thank you once again. I want to go back to Matt Gutman. Matt, you've covered this region for so many years. What more are you learning tonight about Iran, how they are responding to this from your sources?
I have a source that I just texted with, and he reminds me that Israel and the U.S. had some sort of war games about a year ago. Now, they have war games every single year, but this one was different because for the first time, it focused on offensive capabilities against Iran, essentially some sort of preparation for this very kind of attack. Now, the source says they did not plan a year ago for this to be happening right now. They did not know it was going to happen, but it was unique, and it was done under the Biden administration. Some kind of attack, planning for offensive action using a combination of Israeli and U.S. capabilities, including military capabilities, but also intel against Iran and against, they didn't say at the time, but now it's become clear, against its nuclear capabilities, to dismantle those nuclear capabilities. Now, that person says that they are confident that at this point, the damage to the nuclear sites in Iran is irreversible. And I think it's key to remind folks at home that when we talk about destroying these sites, it's not about reducing it to absolute zero. It's about buying a lot of time for the world to wait for a regime change or for something different to happen. And I think that the understanding is, especially among the Israeli military defense echelon at this point, is that what they hoped would be done has been done. And it's also my understanding that Israel has been obviously trying to bomb those nuclear facilities in Natanz and Fordo and Isfahan. And they've been going at it for, as you all mentioned, 9-10 days now. But they only have 2,000-pound bombs. The type of bomb, that mass ordnance penetrator, the MOP, that we're talking about is 30,000 pounds. It is specifically geared to penetrate deep inside mountains, which is where Fordo is, and these nuclear capabilities are. And this is the kind of thing that Israel simply couldn't do alone. It has been trying, basically digging giant holes with regular bombs or more conventional guided bombs, and now they have what they had always hoped for. And Prime Minister Netanyahu, it should be remembered, has been talking about this for the better part of his career. This is dismantling Iran's nuclear ambitions has been something that he's talked about for about 20 years or more. And this is the culmination of everything that he has hoped for. Internally in Israel, they're also talking about how this keeps him in power. It prevents him from being indicted or from being convicted at this point because it puts Israel essentially in another state of war, and they can't be distracted from that. But there is a significant amount of satisfaction in Israel with the way this has been conducted. The question now is how the Iranians decide to retaliate against forces in the region. That source telling me he predicts that there will be a ceasefire and that Iran will come to the table in 2 weeks or risk losing the regime entirely. He emphasizes that the military leadership in Iran is dead. Israel killed the very top leaders, essentially the chief of staff, the head of intelligence, the head of their air force, the head of their rockets and drones, or missiles and drones, and a lot of the know-how that could be able to recreate any sort of nuclear capacity in the future. A lot of those scientists have also been assassinated in the process. So this person is very satisfied, but the question is, where do they go from here, and what kind of retaliation are we seeing?
Matt Gutman for us. Let's go back to Ian Panel in Tel Aviv there. And Ian, you're getting some new information. We know this pressure campaign was happening from the Israelis to the White House to get involved. What more are you learning?
Yeah, well, we're certainly learning. This is from two sources here in the country. The political and security cabinet convened here. This was hours before the U.S. strike on Iran in an underground bunker. It's not clear if they are still there, whether they were watching these events unfold live. But it looks like, given the president's comments, and we know from Mary Bruce and others, that Prime Minister Netanyahu spoke to President Trump before these attacks took place, that there seems to have been close coordination. Again, Steve Ganyard mentioned the Israeli resources on the ground, not just aircraft, but they've got drones over the skies of Iran. We're also hearing from Iranian military officials and local officials in those areas also confirming that there were explosions in those key sites in Natanz, in Isfahan. But they're also saying, certainly Iranian TV is reporting, that the uranium stockpile had been moved out of the area, thereby reducing the risks of radiation.
Panel for us, thank you. And once again, we're getting multiple sources reporting that those B-2 stealth bombers were part of these attacks at 3 separate nuclear sites in Iran. The president, speaking to our John Carl tonight, calling this a tremendous success. Remember, he put a bit of a deadline, 2 weeks for him to make a decision, but that decision came down tonight. And he says it was decisive. We are waiting to see more reaction from Iran and from Washington and from Israel. The skies above Tel Aviv so far have been quiet, but we are waiting to see how this all plays out. ABC News will have continuing coverage throughout the evening. Here we'll come back. President Trump will be speaking later tonight at 10 p.m. to address the American people. We'll be right back.